for it.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us once again on a Friday evening live. And today, I'm not going to spend too much of time having an introduction about it, about an introduction about what we are talking about. The topic is self-explanatory. Why do so many women have complicated relationships with their bodies? And to discuss this topic, I have with me Sunanda Pati again. Sunanda, as you know, is an embodied arts-based facilitator. She's been my therapist who has actually helped me develop a better understanding of my own relationship with my own body and start my healing journey. But the reason I really wanted to have this conversation with Sunanda is because Sunanda does a lot of body work. And intrinsically, when I thought about this topic, the reason I thought about this topic was because all my life I've had a very bad relationship with my body, like a terrible relationship. I used to think I was fat. I thought I was ugly. I thought, I had thought a lot, many things. And just having this bad relationship with my body meant three or four things. Firstly, I did not take care of myself. I would eat badly. I would not take care of myself. I would try to escape from the fact that I did not like my body by indulging and having unhealthy or even toxic behaviors. The second thing was in my job, in my profession, in my leadership positions, in all my roles in life, I always held back. I always minimized myself. I never stepped up and allowed the spotlight to shine on me, which made me less effective in my work roles. And the last part of it was just the emotional stress of not liking myself. I mean, imagine you are stuck with your body this whole life. If you have a complicated relationship, a relationship you don't like with your body, think of the stress that's going on in your mind 24 bar 7. So this is why I wanted to talk about this topic, as removed as it may seem from the subject of personal branding. And I'm so glad to have Sunanda here. Sunanda, welcome to the conversation. Thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for having me, Rekha. I'm really, really looking forward to this because it's such a potent topic. And as women, I think most of us will be able to resonate with it in different ways. So, yeah, I can't wait to get started.
Okay. So, Sunanda, when we talked about this topic, and we were going back and forth a little bit on the title. It's like, how do we title this? How do we frame this? Because we didn't have many reference points for this conversation. And I think one of the titles we put on the table originally was, why do many women have difficult relationships with our bodies? And you said this resonates very deeply with me. I would prefer to go with this. Of course, in the final cut, we changed it to complicated because there are ups and downs. It's not always difficult. There are times you love your body too, but it's not sustained. So I'm very, very curious. Why did that resonate? Why did that title resonate so much with you about women having difficult relationships with their bodies?
It's a great question, Rekha. I think one of the things that I have experienced while inhabiting a woman's body, I like to think about it like that. Like I mean, I believe in this whole theory of souls and having multiple lives. So I feel like I have this body in this life, and I connect with it as a woman. So I feel like while inhabiting a woman's body, it's never a linear process to feeling healthy about it, because there's just always so much in the air. For me, I think personally, I resonated because I've had a very challenging relationship with my body. It's it has had to do with early abuse. It has had to do with getting bullied at a young age, finding my strength, feeling like no one else was there to support me. I'm saying, like there are these narratives that are always around you, that make it tough for you to connect with your body just as it is. You have to be strong. Can you be weak?
Yes,
If you are weak, what do you do with the weakness? If you are
yes,
strong, how much strength can you show? You
yes,
know? And these are all, of course, what I'm saying is a little bit about how we relate to other people or, other relationships. but
Yeah,
it's exactly the same with within ourselves. So I
absolutely.
think that's it's been a very difficult journey for me. Whether it is about food, whether it is about relating to in a way that I can sustain a practice. In fact,
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I began body work so intensively is because I wanted to make sure that I stick to something without falling off.
Yes. The bandwagon.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally. Yeah.
Because there was a bit of a discomfort. I think I'm also someone who was like, okay, what is this about? What is this about? And if I can find it for myself, maybe I can help others find it, too.
Sunanda, I agree so much with all that you've said because, like you, for a very long time, I think the biggest challenge I had was was the fact that I was expected to be the body, and the body that was given to me was the body of a woman, and there was a disconnect at a soul level. There was a disconnect because yes, I identify as a woman. I feel, but it's not my body that makes me a woman. It's my experience. There's so much more to it. And even when I connect with other people, I realize it's my experiences and my emotional, the emotional range that I bring into my interactions that helps me connect with people. And I think a lot of us struggle with being a woman in the as is defined. Everything is so gendered in our world, and it's so rigidly gendered. There's no space for in betweens. There's no space for there is app and in our heads we this it's a very interesting thing I heard from one of the women in my closer circles was she said once you get to 40, 45, 50, you suddenly realize that this gender construct is not important. It's very fluid in your head, and we are then expected to fit a narrative that you don't really fully own or identify with 200%, and we don't have space to say, okay, I mean, we still talk about masculine and feminine energies, but we are not really bringing it into our lives because there's so much of judgment and challenges there. So I love the fact that you're talking about, you've separated out and you're bringing the soul into the picture. I love that. So, you have done so much of work with the body. I know you've helped me. I know you've helped a lot of people with the, in understanding and having a better relationship with their bodies. In your conversations, in your experience, what have you observed as the common themes when it comes to women having complicated relationships with their bodies?
Um, so I think there are a few parts to this, Rekha. That's been
Yeah,
my personal
sure,
observation.
of course.
One part is what happens with what we hear from outside or what we experience as messages coming to us, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
They could be handed down by our parents. They could be handed
mm-hmm,
down by society,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
whichever societal context we are in at that moment.
absolutely.
Um, but the second part is what we do with those messages.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I would want to talk about boundaries, because I think, you know, it's not an element that we are taught when we are young.
Yeah.
It's not part of our school syllabus.
Yes.
It's not part of any formal, education that we as children we would have gone
Mhm.
through. And I'm saying this primarily because I think our primary experiences affect us deeply.
Yes, it does.
When a message comes in, or when a message came in all those years back, what did we do with that? And
Yeah.
if that sets a pattern,
Mm.
and life keeps happening, right? And life is overwhelming.
Yes.
You might not even after a point notice what
Mm.
those patterns are. And much later, maybe due to an illness, maybe due to a divorce, maybe there are so many reasons, right? When as women, we are like, oh my God, there is
Yeah.
something that we need to look into. There is
Yes.
something that has not been looked into. And that's when the
Yeah.
peeling off happens. So I
Yeah.
think there are two parts. One is what is coming from outside, and
Mm-hmm.
the other is what we are doing within. with
Mm-hmm.
what is coming from outside. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times there is no alignment between the two.
Mm.
So there could be resistance within from, to taking the messages.
Mm-hmm.
But because as a child, perhaps somebody was helpless, they were like, okay, and it has happened to me. I mean, without speaking conceptually, I can say
Yeah.
without even taking specific examples, when a message has come to me and I did have a resistance,
Yeah.
I took on the message because I think self-doubt is also something that is so drilled into, it's just there in the air for women.
Mm. Mm.
Like when you
Yeah.
speak up, you are asked not to speak up. When you use your voice, you are asked not to use your voice. So I think these are all elementally related at some level,
Mm.
and they play up in this way.
Yeah. Okay. Sunanda, I'm going to request you if you could give some popular examples because I get what you're telling me at a contextual level, but I would like for this to be a little more relatable to
Mm,
us in a day-to-day basis because it's only when we can understand it and really reflect upon it in a daily context
mm,
that we are really able to even start questioning and
mm,
observing and start that whole practice of going back and saying, okay, body, this is you and I are here for the, we are in it to the end. There's nobody else that's going to come to the end with you. So we have to start that conversation at some point.
yeah.
And how do we, because I do remember, when I
Mm,
started working with you, that was the first time I even started noticing my body, that noticing that I noticed a few things when I started working with you. One of the facts was all through my childhood, I was always told, or the information that I got and that I processed was I was fat.
mm,
And that was so drilled into my head. I never realized that I would always wear oversized clothes. It
mm,
was like unconscious. I would gravitate towards it. I would wear oversized clothes. If I had something that fitted me
mm,
in any level, I would feel this sense of resistance inside of me, which was like, take it off, go back into your sack and hide yourself, because we
mm,
don't want people to see the fat around us, or
mm,
around us as me and my body, right?
mm,
So if you can, if you have examples which are very generic, it doesn't necessarily have to be personal, but if
mm,
you have some
mm,
generic examples which would help us understand it a little better, I
mm.
think that would be a great conversation, a turn point with the conversation.
Sure. I would be happy to. So let's start with something that I personally relate to. It's fitness, right? But I've actually met people who are very fit people, fit women, who
Hmm.
have very complicated relationships with their bodies. So
Yes.
there is a kind of a person with a whip
Hmm.
sitting inside of them. So
Yes.
it's not a very healthy fitness. You see what I'm trying to say? It's not
Yes.
someone who's saying gently, okay, you need to just stay functional, you need to stay fit, so go
Yeah.
on. It's
Yeah.
literally somebody sitting with a whip, and
Yeah.
if you do not work out, that person is going to whip the hell out of you. So
Yeah.
here I think it's a great place that we've arrived at in the conversation, Rekha, because this is where I want to speak about what seems and what is, and they
Hmm.
might not be the same. So
Yes.
on the outside, you might be seeing a very fit woman, but
Yes.
inside, we do not know what her challenges are.
That resonates so much because I think just before we came on air, I was just telling you that when I tell people I have anxiety, and before I go through every live, I have to literally go on, I have to sit quiet and still for like almost an hour plus just to be able to do the live. But a lot of people, when I tell them that I do have anxiety, I'm introverted, their first response is, no way, not you. So, you make such an excellent point about what it seems like and what is. And I think this is so amplified in today's world where social media is literally in charge of our lives.
Mm,
And everybody is trying to, just present this perfect uh, picture for the world to see. And we really don't know what's going on inside. We don't know what's going on inside. We don't know what's going on in their minds. We don't know what they're living with. And the truth of it is, there are far more people struggling than we know. And these come
Absolutely.
out in intimate conversations. I'm just going to take a quick moment to say hello to Trevor and Halcyon. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do feel free to weigh in with your comments and your, insights and your observations, because this is really a conversation for all of us as a community, and we would love to hear from you as well as to what, if you would like to weigh in, we would love to hear it from you. Thank you. So, Sunanda, I know you covered it very briefly, saying, what we receive, how do we absorb. My next question was really about, why do you think these themes or these reasons get so ingrained into us? And the reason I ask this is because I am in my 40s now, and suddenly I find the narrative around me, like all through my 20s and the 30s, the women around me were worried about their bodies. The body image was a problem, the looks was a problem, the intelligence was a problem, the courage, all of that was a problem. Now I find there are two new dimensions in the conversations that popularly come up. One is age, and the second one is health and well-being, because many women are going towards a change of life. So it's almost as if, you get to a certain age or a stage and a narrative is triggered, just like that. It's almost like there's something running, a script is running, which comes into play at a certain age. And this makes me very curious. I'm very, very curious to understand, how does this work? You think you've got it all sorted, but nah, suddenly the switch goes off and something comes into play, then you're struggling, you're going up and down again. So why do you think these themes and reasons, whether it is age, whether it's the body image, whether it is our looks, whether it is our health, whether it is qualities, the so-called feminine qualities, why do you think they're so drilled deep into us that even when we practice self-awareness, it's so hard to even see them sometimes, or even to unscript it?
Yeah. I understand that there is probably not one answer for this, Rekha. That's my sense. But I think I will speak about how um, the world has largely been run by men,
Mm-hmm.
and how men look at women.
Mm-hmm.
And, women have typically they are I think there is a lot of validation seeking that happens in women from men.
Yeah.
And I think I bring this point up because of my own early experiences in my classroom. Okay, I'm going to go back to my classroom in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a tomboy, and I really didn't care about how I looked because I knew that I have brains. Okay, but
Right.
I always saw that uh, the boys are attracted to a certain kind. So imagine a primary experience like that. Oh, so this kind gets the validation. So what
Yeah.
should I be like? Maybe I should be this kind.
Yeah.
You can't really say that over the years I haven't taken on any of those things. I
Yeah.
am I have certainly unpacked. And
Yeah.
during my unpacking, and during me helping other people unpack, I have seen these themes. I
Yeah.
think, and I think Philip, I just saw Philip's message, where
Yeah.
he
He
asked
said,
about
do you
validation.
think one's relationship to one's body is linked to a need for validation?
And I think it's a great question, Philip, because
Yeah.
I think it is true. It
Mm-hmm.
is true because I think before we see ourselves for who we are depending on others
Yeah.
to tell us who we are. And I think this again is a very primary experience because it starts when we are babies.
Yeah.
That's when we look at a mother's face,
Yeah.
and the whole aspect of mirroring.
Yeah.
Whatever the mother mirrors is what we understand of the world. And I think
Absolutely.
that never really quite completely goes away.
Yeah.
We learn better, we learn to do better, but I think we still struggle, and I think this is the reason why we struggle.
Sunanda, when you talk about this, there's a thought that came to my mind, and the fact that when we talk about validation, it actually complicates our relationships with ourselves and particularly our bodies, because we are at any given point in time seeking validation from different people. It's not even just the men, but it's also our mothers, those,
Mm.
people who are in the mother roles with us, our peers, and it's different degrees. So it's really so complex and layered. You're juggling all of that. And I get your point about how it's like a lot of resistance. It's like a wave. It's like a tidal wave coming at you. And how do you hold on?
Mm.
Even as you have something that, it's almost like being facing a tidal wave, while you're chained down, and you can't move, you can't run, but you have to figure out a way to start progressing through it. So yeah, that's a very powerful point you've made about how we mirror, how so much of what we tell ourselves and the way we relate to ourselves is rooted in validation.
Mm.
Yes, we have Halcyon who says really interesting perspective with respect to the mirroring of mothers. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a very powerful point because, at some point in our journeys, we realize that we are becoming our mothers. And you have to really consciously, work on yourself to be your own person.
Mm.
Because your mother is a person in her own right, and you are a person in your own right, and it's so important. So which brings me to the next question, Sunanda. How do we begin to start with accepting and befriending our bodies? And I ask this because I think this is so important. You and I have spoken about this so often, that so much of our experiences and our perceptions of ourselves emotionally, mentally, is rooted in our body.
Yeah.
So much of it, right? Even our experiences of the world is rooted in our body. So how do we start to, just start that process? How do we just get onto that road of getting back to just having a conversation, having a civil conversation with our bodies?
Great question, Rekha. I think the first thing that I would, I would say this, and I say this from experience. In order to start relating back to the body, we need to
Mm-hmm.
make space for it.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
say, perhaps this sounds simplistic, but I think the reason I'm saying this is because life itself is like a wave. And
Yeah.
if anybody keeps just bobbing up and down, through the ocean like that with the
Yes.
waves and not
Yes.
stopping,
Hmm.
they they are, they are basically, they are completely enmeshed with their patterns.
Yes.
Whereas space could be very simple. Space doesn't necessarily mean physical space,
Yeah.
but actually taking out 5 minutes in the morning,
Hmm.
sitting down,
Mm-hmm.
and just asking yourself, okay, how do I feel this morning?
Yeah.
What thoughts have I woken up with? Do I have pains anywhere?
Hmm.
Am I looking forward to meeting the day?
Yeah.
If there are, say, 2, 3 meetings lined up, who am I looking forward to meeting? I think it's very
Yeah.
interesting that our bodies are also constantly giving us cues about who we want to engage with
Yes, absolutely.
and who we do not want to.
Yeah, I know. There's like you have a visceral reaction to some people, right? Like I don't want to be near this person, and the body's telling you that.
Yeah, and as much as it might not exactly be completely rational, it could be
Hmm.
emotional, but still
Hmm.
that is material for us to know for ourselves in that moment.
Absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
might change. The relationship with that material might change as we move along.
Yes.
In that moment, that is our truth.
Yes. Halcyon agrees with you on that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
So.
one Rekha. The other thing that that came to me was to really look at ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's a very physical grounding exercise of doing what our mothers did when we were babies, but
Hmm.
this time we are using our own eyes.
Okay, that's interesting. Tell us more.
So yeah, you just stand in front of the mirror and you look at yourself. And I remember the first time I did it, I was like, "What?" The inner critic was, we
Yeah.
have this inner critic.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that eyebrow, that's not working fine. Oh, you should be smiling at the mirror.
Look at the dark circles.
Yeah, yeah. And then, it just began to grow and grow more. In
Yeah.
fact, if, anybody here has read Louise Hay, she
Hmm.
was a big, a big supporter of this practice. And
Yeah.
she talked about this at length.
Mm.
I think when we mirror ourselves, there is an opportunity for us to re-look at how we've been looking at ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's also that loving and that accepting, because every day when you get up and look at yourself in the mirror, something that I notice, I do this, and something that I've noticed is although initially the critic is out in arms, I think at some point the critic gets fed up also because you're still going back and looking at the mirror and it's the same face. And I think that's when resistance started to, mellow down for me and said, this is the face I have.
Mhm.
And it's like, hello, face, how are you? And then there was this point when I said, oh, you're not bad looking, actually. I don't know why I was criticizing myself so much about, or, why was I being so critical about it? And I think you're right. I think it's just about creating that space without telling ourselves in our heads that we are not entitled to that space. A lot of
Yeah,
times we tell ourselves we are not entitled to that space because we have 300 things to do. It's like, why would you just sit by yourself and your thoughts? Are you crazy? It's not. It's something you owe to yourself. I love that you're talking about creating space for yourself to just be and just look at yourself and take in yourself. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, and Rekha, I think I'll just mention one more thing here. I think
Mm-hmm.
what we are talking about is
Mm-hmm.
the antidote, if you might call it,
Yeah. Yeah.
antidote to being constantly being seen through the
Mm-hmm.
eyes of others.
Yes. Absolutely.
If we do not make
Yes.
space for how we see ourselves, we
Hmm.
will always fall back on how others see us.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I kind of, yeah, like it's a process, it's a journey, I kind of think. And if you had to recommend daily practices,
Hmm.
2, 3, 4, how many ever daily practices, uh, what would you recommend for
I would
women?
definitely include the two that I said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say, to whatever extent is possible for people,
Mm-hmm.
they should move. They should
Mm.
move their bodies.
Yes.
A lot
Ab-
of times, what I feel in my work with clients is,
Mm-hmm.
and it is nobody's fault really. It is just
Mm.
that a lot of our work has become so mental and intellectual
Yes.
that our bodies are not, you know, there is a certain staticity, there is a certain
Mm.
stagnancy.
Yeah.
Actually, the body is always wise, but
Yes.
to encounter that wisdom, we
Yeah.
need to shake it up.
Yeah. I agree. In fact, we often talk about, like get out of your head, go out for a walk. Just the this thing of moving your body, or even if it's just you put on some. In fact, I took a cue from watching you on Instagram because I see you do the dance moves on your own, and I actually started incorporating that in my daily practice in the evenings, usually when I want to unwind. It's been a game changer for me. Like
Mm.
suddenly, in an instant, I go from feeling tired, maybe anxious sometimes, maybe stressed, to being, oh, I'm having fun. I like this. Body, I love you, body. I have that moments in my day, which I think is superb. So do you have any more tips, or do you
Um,
think this
yeah,
is a good starting point?
yeah, and I would think, doing our regular bodily us bodily activities more mindfully, and I'm
Yeah.
talking about very simple things, like
Yeah.
eating food.
Yeah.
Really keep the food inside the mouth for some time. I know everybody's in a
Yeah.
hurry, and I've also seen
Yes.
this in myself. Like, oh, this is so tasty, glup. Like,
Right.
there's no difference between my cat and me sometimes. But then when I'm When I'm a little more mindful, I'm like, let me do this.
Just on that note, I have to tell you, my cat and I eat our meals together, and he's very mindful about his food. So I'm also very mindful about my food because he's always watchful of what I'm eating. And I've learned mindfulness from my cat. I think, he's a Zen master for me in a certain sense of the way, in terms of
Mm.
smelling the food, checking out the texture, looking at it. And I actually watch him and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me try it. So
Mm.
that's a great pointer. But I think we have kind of had a pretty deep conversation. We've gone into 30 minutes, and I think this has been fabulous, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. I
Yeah.
think this is a conversation, not just you and me, but many women here. We need to be talking about this because we are all on a journey, and until and unless we can come together and share our learnings and share our conversations, uh, I think we're all going to struggle. And
Yeah.
life's too short for us to struggle. We are human beings who are here to thrive and shine. We shouldn't be struggling. So, Sunanda, any last words for the audience?
Yeah, I just would say that the relationship with the body is complicated because there is a physical aspect, there is a psychosomatic aspect, and our body. I mean, essentially, there is no difference between the head and the body.
Mm-hmm.
For academic purposes, we tend to say mind body. Actually,
Yes,
it's mind body.
yes,
Um, I think it's even if you cannot do any of the other things, just
mm,
make sure you make space to sit with yourself
yes,
or to take a walk.
yeah,
I realize that different people come with a lot of I mean, people have different responsibilities, and
yes.
sometimes it can be, not many rituals or many practices can be possible, but
Mm-hmm.
just the simplest bits, like when you're bathing. Okay, do you feel the water on your skin?
Yeah,
Do you feel how it feels, what the body temperature is like? So
yes,
really scaling up from the basics
yeah,
to more complex stuff as you move
yeah.
along. I think that would be, yeah, that
I,
would
I,
be.
I agree. I think that's basically about claiming each moment and each activity for yourself, choosing to claim, like whether you have a shower, whether you're eating, whether you're having a cup of coffee, make it yours by engaging all your senses and really treating your body to that indulgence, because that's the only way we are being kind to our bodies. And that's the only way, that's where it starts. I completely agree with you. Thank you so much, Sunanda, for joining me. I know you're going to be back and we're going to be talking more more aspects of this conversation are going to unfold over the next couple of months. So, but thank you for all that you do. Thank you for the wisdom you share. Thank you for the conversation. I just want to say thank you to everybody who is here. I can see a lot of support, a lot of conversation happening. We are very grateful you're here today. We are very grateful for the tips and comments and the insights that you have shared. And please do keep coming back. I think next Friday, I'll be talking to another incredible woman who's going to be talking about should women fake it till they make it at work? And what is the emotional cost of faking it at work? That's a great conversation. She's an amazing coach. Please do join us next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Thank you very much. Take care. Grateful, everybody.